Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the clock ticking past midnight. Her husband, Daniel, had passed away 3 months ago in a car accident, and life had collapsed into a blur of bills. Tears and sleepless nights. Her 3 children, Lily, Jake, and Noah, were fast asleep in the next room. Unaware of the storm their mother was battling alone. The small apartment felt colder than ever. The heating bill had gone unpaid again. Emily pulled her sweater tighter and whispered to herself, "You have to keep going. For them." The following morning, Emily packed the kids' lunches with the last of the bread and peanut butter. She kissed them goodbye before school, her smile forced, her eyes heavy. When the door closed behind them, the silence pressed in. She sat at the kitchen table with a stack of unpaid bills, rent, electricity, medical, expenses from Daniel's hospitalization. She buried her face in her hands. That afternoon, Emily walked past a rideshare company's recruitment ad. Drive with Uber, set your own hours. Make extra income. Her heart skipped. She had no professional degree, no savings left, and no time to lose. Maybe this was the answer. That night, after tucking her children into bed, Emily filled out the application on her old laptop. She uploaded documents, scanned her driver's license, and prayed her car would pass inspection. When she hit submit, she whispered, "Please, let this work." 2 days later, an email arrived. "Welcome to Uber. You're ready to drive." Emily exhaled deeply, half relieved, half terrified. This was the beginning of something new, a lifeline in the middle of her storm. Emily's first night as an Uber driver was filled with nervous anticipation. She adjusted the rearview mirror, wiped the dashboard twice, and whispered to herself, "You can do this." Her phone buzzed with her first ride request, a pickup downtown. The streets glowed with neon lights as Emily drove cautiously. When she arrived, a young woman in a sparkling dress hopped into the back seat. "Thanks, I was freezing out there," she said, scrolling on her phone. Emily forced a smile, gripping the wheel tightly. As she drove through the city, doubts crowded her mind. Am I good enough for this? Will I even make enough money? What if something goes wrong? She shook the thoughts away. When she dropped the passenger off safely, her phone pinged. $12 earned. It wasn't much, but it was something. A spark of hope lit inside her. Over the next few weeks, Emily worked late nights while her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a kind widow, watched the kids. She picked up businessmen rushing to the airport, exhausted nurses finishing long shifts, and rowdy college students spilling laughter into the backseat. Each ride was a small victory, each dollar a step away from despair. Still, exhaustion clawed at her. She would return home at 3 a.m., collapse into bed, then wake up at 6 to prepare breakfast and school lunches. Her body ached, but her children's smiles gave her the strength to keep going. One evening, little Jake handed her a crayon drawing, their family in a car, with "Mom as our hero" scrawled at the top. Emily's eyes welled with tears. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe they would be okay. Driving helped Emily cover the basics, but the struggle never ended. Gas prices soared, her car needed repairs, and some nights she earned barely enough to buy groceries. She never told her children the full truth. To them, she was simply working late. But inside, Emily carried a weight that never lifted. One Friday, after a long shift, she came home to find Lily waiting up. "Mom, are we poor?" the little girl asked softly. Emily froze. "Why do you ask that, honey?" "Because other kids talk about vacations and toys. We don't have that." Emily hugged her tightly. "We may not have those things, but we have each other. And that's more important than anything." Later that night, lying awake, Emily couldn't shake the question. Yes, they were struggling, but she couldn't let her children feel deprived of love and hope. She promised herself she would find a way to build a better life. One evening, after dropping off a passenger, Emily parked near the river. The city lights shimmered on the water as she whispered to the night sky, "Daniel, I'm trying. I just wish you were here." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. She couldn't afford to fall apart. On a rainy evening, Emily picked up a middle-aged man named Robert. He noticed her tired eyes in the rearview mirror. "Long night?" he asked kindly. She smiled faintly. "Every night feels long these days." They chatted during the ride. Emily shared bits of her story, though carefully. Robert listened quietly. When they reached his stop, he handed her a $20 tip and said, "You're stronger than you know. Keep going." Emily sat there stunned. It wasn't just the money, it was the reminder that someone saw her struggle. For a brief moment, she felt less invisible. That night, she returned home drenched and exhausted, but with a renewed sense of hope. Weeks turned into months. Emily juggled driving, parenting, and endless bills. One evening, her car broke down on a busy road. She sat behind the wheel, tears spilling as she whispered, "I can't do this anymore." But then she remembered Jake's drawing, "Mom is our hero." She wiped her face, called for roadside assistance, and figured out a way to get the car repaired using the little savings she had. It meant skipping meals and wearing the same worn-out shoes longer. But she refused to give up. At home, she tucked her children into bed and told them stories of bravery. Not about knights or superheroes, but about ordinary people who kept fighting no matter what. Deep inside, she hoped they understood the story was about her too. Emily's days blended together. School drop-offs in the morning, Uber rides through the night, and in between, laundry, groceries, homework checks, and bills. Her body was tired, but her spirit refused to quit. One evening, after finishing a ride, she parked in a quiet lot and stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her eyes looked older, her face worn. She whispered, "Is this who I've become? Just a driver, just a struggler?" But then her phone buzzed with a message from Lily. "I love you. Mom, you're the best." Emily smiled faintly. Maybe she wasn't just anything. She was the glue holding everything together. It was Christmas Eve. Emily hadn't been able to buy her kids presents, and the guilt gnawed at her heart. That night, she picked up a cheerful woman carrying shopping bags. They chatted, and Emily admitted it had been a tough year. The woman, whose name was Sarah, listened quietly. When the ride ended, Sarah slipped a wrapped box onto the front seat. "For your kids," she said with a warm smile. Inside the box were toys and clothes, things Emily could never have afforded. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." For the first time in months, Christmas morning was filled with laughter in their little home. Not every night was hopeful. Some nights brought drunk passengers yelling at her. Others slammed doors without tipping. Once, a man made her feel unsafe, forcing her to pull over and end the ride early. Driving through the empty streets afterward, she gripped the steering wheel, her hands trembling. "Why does life keep testing me?" she muttered. But the next morning, when she saw her children eating cereal at the table, their smiles lit up the room. "Because of them," she reminded herself. "That's why I keep going." Every fall only made her rise stronger. One evening, Emily's car repairs threatened to push her into debt again. She nervously explained her situation to the mechanic, expecting no mercy. But the mechanic, an older man, simply said, "Pay me in installments." "You're doing your best, I can see that." Emily nearly cried. Small kindnesses like these kept her afloat. They reminded her that though the world was heavy, there were still people willing to help her carry it. That night, she drove home whispering prayers of gratitude. One night, Emily returned home past midnight to find her kids still awake. At first, she was upset, but then Lily spoke up. "Mom, we made a promise," she said, holding her brother's hands. "When we grow up, we'll take care of you the way you take care of us now." Emily's heart broke and healed all at once. She hugged them tightly, whispering, "You already take care of me, more than you know." In that moment, she realized she wasn't alone. Her children were her strength, her reason, her future. Winter hit hard. Snow piled on the streets, making driving dangerous and exhausting. Emily worked through icy nights, her fingers numb on the steering wheel. One evening, her car skidded on black ice. Heart pounding, she managed to stop just inches away from another vehicle. She sat there shaking, whispering, "I can't let anything happen. They need me." That night, she almost decided to quit. But when she got home, Noah climbed into her lap and said, "You're the bravest mom in the whole world." His innocent faith lit a fire inside her. Emily realized the storm was testing her, but it wouldn't break her. She had already come too far. Spring arrived, bringing with it small blossoms of hope. With careful budgeting and countless late nights, Emily had finally caught up on rent and bills. The fridge was no longer empty. The children laughed more, slept peacefully, and even dreamed out loud about the future. One afternoon, Emily received news that she had qualified for a housing support program. It meant stability, a safer home, a lighter burden. She broke down crying, not from sadness, but from relief. That evening, she gathered her children around the table. "We made it," she whispered, smiling through tears. "We're going to be okay." The kids cheered, hugging her tightly. Lily said, "See, Mom? You really are our hero." Emily looked at their glowing faces, her heart swelling. The road ahead would never be perfect, but they had survived the darkest chapter. And now together, they were stepping into a new beginning.